So the next question then is about resilience, because that is talked a lot about in teaching. How can teachers be more resilient? It's something I get approached a lot to do training on. I've got some early career teachers, and then we just need them to be a bit more resilient to cope with the workload and the pressures. And a refreshing kind of take in your book is that there's a lot of rubbish talked about resilience. So can you give your perspective on what resilience really is, and maybe some of the myths around it as well?
Yeah. Okay. So we could see resilience as the flip side in a way of burnout. So depending on what is the system around us, what that balance of radiators and drains are, we will be pushed towards burnout or we will push towards feeling resilient. But we feel resilient because we're in a system that manages our radiators and drains and makes us feel resilient. So it's not about us; it's about the system we're in, and actually, a lot of the influence on that system is not us. We can have some influence, and I'm very happy to talk about that. But a lot of it is the culture. So, the people who have that influence are often the senior leadership team and above, the Ofsted and the government as well. So it's that culture that affects how we feel about our work, those negative experiences at work, but also how much support we feel at work.
Mm.
And there's examples of schools that have changed culture to prioritize well-being that do really well. And the well, I'm going off track, but you don't need to. It's great to prioritize well-being and of your staff for your staff and their families because it makes a massive difference to them, but it also makes a massive difference to the school community you're able to provide and the productivity of your teachers and the effectiveness of your teachers. But anyway, I'm going off
Mm.
track, so I'll come back. The um, so I get really cross with resilience, and we have it. Well, all sorts of sectors have that thing, which is, oh, we've got a problem. Our new starters are all leaving or they're burning out. We just need to teach them to be more resilient. I've heard that in teaching, as you have, but I've also heard it in health. I've heard it in law, and it's a completely missing the point. So it's problematic in two ways. The first way it's problematic is because it doesn't work, because you
Mm.
can't teach teach people resilience in that sense. There's a really interesting piece of work in a high profile medical school in America, and they did some really quite interesting resilience stuff. They help people with mindfulness. They help people feel peer groups when they were in medical school, and people felt a little bit better. But as soon as they joined the hospital, that was relentless, hardworking, with a completely different culture, a non-caring culture, really, everything went. So it's culture eats well-being initiatives for breakfast, and so that's the problem, that it doesn't work. But the second problem, and this is what makes me really mad about it, is it suggests that if we are burning out or we're not feeling resilient, it is our fault. And that is disastrous, because what happens is that is the staff feel it must be something I'm doing wrong. Therefore it makes staff much less likely to put their hand up and reach out and say, actually, I'm really finding this difficult. Could I have some additional support here? Or perhaps my workload needs to be modified slightly, or I need some help with something. And that's why that resilience message is so toxic, because it stops people reaching out for the help they need. So it actually makes them less resilient in many ways.
Interesting. Yeah. So I like that expression, culture eats well-being initiatives for breakfast, because that is a common thing I see on social media platforms where there's often big teaching communities. So whether it's on Facebook in certain groups, whether it's on Twitter X, um, I see well-meaning teachers, school leaders saying, we want a big focus on staff well-being. What ideas work in your school? What strategies or what interventions? And it feels very like, what are the things that we can do? What's the stuff? And like you say, like a workplace that's conducive to well-being or resilience, the way I often describe it, it's like a humane workplace. It's where people treat each other respectfully. It's where there's understanding when people are struggling. There's empathy. It's where there's a culture where you can go to your boss and say, "Look, I'm really not in a good place," and it's met with, "Okay, how can we help?" rather than, let's put you on a stress course or something like that. So yeah, it's humane cultures and workplaces that make employees resilient.
Yeah, 100%, Adrian.